New York Mets, photo by Adam Hunger, Getty Images. The New York Mets have a lot of buzz as they enter the 2019 regular season, and rightfully so. The Mets made many power moves this offseason that includes, but is not limited to, spending a lot of money, bringing back a familia face, see what I did there, and trading away coveted prospects. Method aside, they were all for the same purpose: to win. That is the message that first-year general manager Brodie Van Waganen has been sending since he took over the job just a few months ago. Replacing longtime GM Sandy Alderson, Van Waganen provides a fresh breath of air. But with a new GM comes new expectations. Everyone must prove to the new boss he should be part of their plan. Luckily, the Mets that were here before he arrived are young enough to only get better and prove themselves otherwise. Like all things with this franchise, I am sort of taking this buzz with a very cautious, but optimistic approach. On paper, all new moves and lady time have seemed to improve this roster, but the second they run out on the field, all what-ifs become needs-to-bes. The players will have to back up their general manager's words, and they will have to do their jobs to live up to the hypes themselves. I for one am actually excited for this season, but it is for many other reasons rather than the new faces brought in. The 50th anniversary of the 1969 Miracle Mets should be a great weekend. Michael Conforto, who I think is going to be a star, finally had a full, normal offseason after still dealing with that shoulder last year, and who could forget Jeff McNeil and how well he hit when 2018. The Mets will be a different team in terms of what they have, but also in experience. Manager Mickey Callaway is no longer a rookie manager, and the five-man rotation stayed exactly the same, building more chemistry. So, enough banter. Here are three of thoughts that crossed my mind as the Mets prepare to write the next chapter of their history. Next, Mickey Callaway shouldn't be on a short leash. Page 2 New York Mets. Photo by Michael Reeves, Getty Images. When a new GM comes and seemingly wipes the prospect pool and payroll clean like Brodie Van Waganen did when he first came on, he set the tone that no one is safe. While giving Jacob deGrom an extension suppressed his aggressiveness to bring in new faces, there is still one thing lingering that I do not like. Mickey Callaway shouldn't be on such a thin leash, which I would assume he is. I fully understand that Van Waganen was not the man who brought in Mickey Callaway to manage, but that does not mean he shouldn't be on such thin ice. Mickey Callaway has been the manager for one season. That is it. He had a lackluster roster and still took the Mets to an incredibly hot start and finish last season. Yeah, he had his hiccups, but it takes more than 162 games to learn how to be the best manager at the big league level. If Callaway has been here 3-4 years before Brodie, then I would say yeah, keep his leash short. However, Callaway has not been on the Mets much longer than Van Waganen. If anything, the new GM should be happy he kept Callaway around, because he might be able to help him get to know some of the players that were here last season and help him do his job with the roster. While I am not going to say that Callaway should be 100% safe, I also do not think a bad start should constitute any type of knee-jerk reaction. It is a very long season and the Mets are not exactly playing in the easiest division. If the season is 80 games and the Mets are terrible, and no one is playing to their potential, then sure, fire Callaway and try to save the season. But if the Mets are chugging along and doing well, keep him around. It might take time for all the new faces to mold with the old ones, and there are a lot of moving parts when you build a team around pitching. Callaway shouldn't have to be worrying about his job during the first month of the season. While he still might not be literally worrying about it, I think giving him time to be a part of what is a new regime for everybody is a better idea. Next, early schedule will be a solid measuring stick. Page 3 New York Mets. 10 games could set absolutely no standards for the next 20. However, they all still add up. A random hiccup in June could impact whether you are watching or playing in the playoffs come October. Last season, the Mets won many of their first 20 games, but it was all for nothing. So, when I say the Mets' early schedule is a good measuring stick for where they want to be in August, I do not mean the wins and losses are what matters. It is more the intangible stuff that matters. For example, the Mets open the season against Max Scherzer. They play the Nationals on the road for 2 more after that. Then, the Mets go to Miami for 3 before their own home opener against the Nationals the day after they leave Miami. That is followed up by a mini-series against the Twins before 10 straight road games, 7 versus the division, 3 against the Cardinals. April closes out with a home series against the Brewers and the Reds. The early schedule for the Mets sounds terrible, but it really is not. They will see just about everything they could in that time. They see an AL team, every division rival, 2 contending teams in another NL division, and a 10-game road stand. We saw last season how one awful month can derail an entire season. March, April will be a great test to see if that transitions into this year. All the teams and places they see in the beginning of the season, they will again see at the end of the season. The experience they get playing the Braves, Phillies, and Nationals early, could make the difference in how they play them for the division later in the year. They could learn something and use it to their advantage. Plus, the travel and the long stretches away from home will help the team bond and build stronger, you know, the intangible stuff. While the Mets' wins and losses still matter after the first month of the season or so, who they play, where they play, and how they play is a great measuring stick for how the team will be all season. The mental toughness is getting tested early. Overcome that in the rest of the year could be a cakewalk. Next, pitching isn't what will win them games. Page 4 New York Mets. While the Mets are and always will be a team built around their pitching staff, it will not be the pitching that wins them games. While great pitching is rare, and a massively important asset to have, the Mets will not get over the hump based on their pitching alone. While that makes sense, I think we might slowly start to see the Mets' identity become smart defense. Having Jacob deGrom is an overall asset. He is so special he can still win in spite of a bad offense. Noah Syndergaard might be that good one day too. However, the Mets will probably lose a lot of games with Zach Wheeler, Steven Matz, and Jason Vargas starting because they just need a little bit more run support. The exception is I do think we will see Wheeler going later into games this year because he is on a walk year and the Mets might not have anything to lose, so there shouldn't be restrictions, but he still needs to show he can bring it again. Matz and Vargas, getting out of their own heads is the key for them. Both can be solid if they learn how to not just get absolutely shellacked. Anyway, I digress. None of what the pitchers do matters if the offense cannot get going. If Robinson Cano is not the average power hybrid hitter he has always been, the Mets could struggle. If Amed Rosario does not get a lot of hits and steal a lot of bases, the Mets could struggle. If Conforto does not hack his way out of trouble, the Mets could struggle. While deGrom is best player on the team, and more important than any position players right now, I would argue the Mets' identity is their quest to figure out how to tap the potential of their offense. The health of the pitching staff is obviously important, but if that goes well, and deGrom was healthy all of last year, then yeah, the Mets will be great. However, the Mets need the bats to be marginally better than we have seen in order to go from being great to special. A big reason why the Red Sox won the World Series, and they are now the standard MLB team because of that, was they led the league in runs. They did have the 3rd lowest team ERA in the American League, but it was that balance of doing both that won them the Commissioner's Trophy. You don't want the Mets to be like the Diamondbacks last year. Yeah, the Diamondbacks had a team ERA of 3.72, 3rd best in the NL, but they finished 9th in the NL in runs scored and they weren't close to the playoffs by the end of the year. .2019 will be different no matter how you look at it, but it is more or less the same as it's always been. The Mets can pitch great all they want, heck, they can lead the NL in every pitching category. However, in the end, they want to be equally as dangerous at the plate. It is complementing a great rotation that makes a team special, not riding it until there is nothing left. In order to win in 2019, the Mets' identity must be finding their offense. The pitching is already in place, time to see what they more recently put into place pay its dividends. Next, 3 realistic goals for Michael Conforto in 2019. Are you ready for some Metropolitans baseball?